Welcome to the WorkWell Podcast. I'm Dulcie, and I'm here with my best friend of over 20 years, Yemisi.
20 years? Wow. And in that time, we've seen it all professionally. From big wins to epic fails, we've learned so much along the way about life, work, and everything in between.
We don't believe in gatekeeping, so we want to share these lessons with you. We've created this space to explore the challenges we all face, whether it's finding balance, building confidence, or even stepping into leadership.
You'll get stories, advice, and practical tools to help you feel inspired, informed, and excited to tackle whatever comes next.
So, take a deep breath, settle in, and let's dive into today's conversation. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Good.
Yeah.
So, it's episode 6. We are about halfway through season 1.
Episode 6
I know.
already.
We're already here.
We've been talking that much.
We've really been talking, okay? And I think we should be proud of ourselves, right?
Agreed.
Right? I think we should be so proud of ourselves that we tell everyone about it. We should share it. It's a win.
Yeah.
We should share it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Halfway through season 1.
Right?
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't just share it. I think we should brag about it.
Oh, that's a smooth entry.
It was smooth, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we're both resisting that's what she said, but
I was literally gripping my
I heard
hand.
you. I heard you when you said, I was like, she has pursed her lips together so hard. It can feel really awkward, right? To share like what you're doing well, to share your wins, and like even that word bragging, it's got a bad rep.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's something that people don't feel comfortable doing, and we'll talk about like why shortly. But the reality is it's so important, because if you aren't advocating for yourself, who is? Who is? Yemi, what about you? Like, how do you, when I say to you, do you brag? How do you feel about bragging? What comes up for you?
When you ask me that question, do you brag? My answer already is hell no.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've had to do to reframe it for myself is sharing my work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't brag, but I share my work, and that's helped me because I could not just get over that word brag, because like it or not, society has actually attached very negative connotations to that word, especially for women, right? So it's one of those things where once I did the course on better bragging, once I did a bit of reading, I realized that what bragging actually is sharing your work and sharing your achievements in a way that aligns with your personal values. And secondly, thinking about who else can I bring on board in this journey with me? Because most times, most of the achievements I did not achieve alone. And I find it very, very easy to cheerlead for other people. And so what I've done from the insights I gained from the Own Your Brilliance course and from my own reading is that if I use shouting at other people as a vehicle for actually talking about my achievements, I felt a lot more comfortable with it. It felt more authentic to me. It felt more natural. And I was able to say the facts without feeling like a fraud, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or feeling like a show off.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's really good to hear. And so much of what the journey you've been on is what we're going to talk about today, as to, why it feels so hard, why it's important, and how to start doing it in a way that, like the word you got there was perfect, in a way that feels authentic to you. So if we come back to the height kind of
hold on. Yeah. What about you, girl?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Bragging. So this is an interesting one for me in that I am okay talking about what I've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm more than happy to talk about it because I think a long time ago I realised if I don't say anything, nobody was going to talk for me. But I've always had to sort of think about how can I do this thing? How can I do it in a way that makes sense? And so that is for me about the story and the value add. So like, why does this matter? Who am I saying it to and for what purpose? Am I saying it to inspire someone else? Am I saying it to sell something to someone? Am I saying it to get a promotion? Like really thinking about how I'm crafting it and what value I'm giving and what benefit I'm getting. I will say that for me, where I struggled with bragging, or maybe the better term is self-promotion, has been outside of my immediate environment. So more than happy within my work setting to talk about me or my team and, you know, to say this is what's happening, this is what we're doing, this is what we've done, blah, blah, blah. And like you, I really like bigging up other people. Because it is a team effort and no one is doing anything in isolation. But that's all fine within a work environment. I have come a cropper with the sort of more public stuff, the LinkedIn, like that sort of stuff, and trying to find my authentic voice in that sea of crap, quite honestly. And yeah, like that's where I've struggled, continue actually to find that a bit difficult. I think things are changing a bit for me now as to how to do that. But I've always been very focused on my immediate work environment and been more comfortable in that setting to vocalize, this is what's happening, this is what we are doing, this is what my contribution was. So yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm comfortable with it. It's not the thing I wake up and say, let me start talking about this cool thing I did. But I won't shy away from it because I understand the need. And the need to do it has always outweighed the nervousness about doing it. And I think that's why I've struggled to do it outside in the world, because I'm like, why do I need to do this? You know, like it's only more recently that I'm like, actually, there is real value in me putting my head above the parapet and talking out into the world a bit more. When I started doing that, it took an interesting form for me, which was actually writing. Yeah, more so than just a vacuous post on LinkedIn. No shade to everyone. I actually found that it wasn't even so much LinkedIn. It was more like talking head in an article or talking to journalists or writing an article for trade press and things like that. That stuff for me felt a lot more real because I was able to, I'm not great with just surface. I like to go deep with things. So actually having the space to write about something more extensively or write articles, I was like, yeah, that feels a bit better. And that's something now that I'm doing more with WorkWell again is, you know, newsletter and articles and blah, blah, blah. Like, and then to now talk about those things feels a lot more authentic to me than to start doing those weird posts on LinkedIn. Again, no shade to everybody. But yeah, it's just, I think no matter how comfortable you are, most people with an ounce of self-awareness probably do feel some levels of discomfort around either what they're saying, where they're saying it, or how they're saying it. And these are all things that you can work on and practice and improve on every day because it is so important. So coming back then to the barriers, and especially when we think about women, there's a marked difference between the comfort levels that men and women, we're not saying all men and all women, of course, but in general, there's a difference between how comfortable men and women feel bragging and also how positively they're received when they brag or self-promote. We have to be very honest about that, right? We all know the thing of, oh, this guy's assertive, but the same behavior in a woman is aggressive or pushy. You know, so
I'm sure there's research about that as well.
There's a lot of research about that. So this isn't like you can't rationalize your way out of it, right? There are real barriers that do make this trickier for some people than others, and I don't want to pretend that isn't there. So as you know, we'll talk today about what to do, how to do it, how to get more comfortable with it. But we have to remember we're in the real world where some people, depending on the mouth it's coming out of, just won't take it very well. Okay? But quite frankly, fuck them. All right.
Let them.
Let them, as Mel Robbins would say. Let them.
I'm loving that book, by the way.
I really like saying that like with my whole teeth and tongue. Let them.
I actually heard your teeth and tongue.
You heard my teeth and tongue. Absolutely. And like my fingers were waving as well. Like, let them.
I could see your head, like
Right.
your neck was like bending to one side.
It sure was. Let them. You know that little gif of who is it? Bugs Bunny saying no.
Oh.
That's exactly the face I'm pulling when I say let.
That is a fantastic image.
I think that's honestly the number one gif of my life. Anywho, why bragging feels hard? Why does it feel hard? So it's individual, everyone has their stuff, but there are some really common barriers. There's a lot around it culturally.
Yeah.
That especially for women or marginalized groups, that there is that pressure to be humble, don't be a braggart, don't be arrogant, like stay humble. And the research proves it out that women are far less likely to self-promote when compared to men, even if they are fully qualified to do so, but they just don't, because they don't want to be perceived in a certain way. The dreaded imposter syndrome, we have got an episode coming up that is about, because it's a big old topic. But that, very lightly touch on it here, that feeling of, I don't deserve to be here, like I'm the imposter in the room, and therefore you don't want to start bragging because it's going to draw attention to your undeserving ass. I mean, imposter syndrome is a demon. Get it out. We've got to get this thing away. But we will dive into that whole mess in a future episode. I think maybe next week. Yeah, next week we'll talk about it. The fear of judgment, which is enmeshed within all of this, that fear of being seen as arrogant,
Mm-hmm.
And we've already talked about this next one, perfectionism.
Yeah.
That stupid old thing. You don't want to share what you've done until it's perfect. It's not ready. And I definitely have had this problem where I've not wanted to talk about it until it was just so. And by the time it is just so, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Everyone's moved on. Like, come on. Just get it out there. Go talk, speak.
Yeah. Done better than perfect.
Always. If I ever get a tattoo, that might be the one, because there's done is better than perfect and progress is better than perfection, or whatever the hell I'm always saying. So those are some of the common barriers to self-promotion or bragging. And I'm sure as you're listening to this, one or multiple of those resonate. But the important thing to do, and Yemi, you talked about this when you talked about your own experience with self-promotion and bragging, is you need to reframe it as self-promotion. Sharing your impact, sharing your value is not arrogant. It's just not.
Even sharing yourself, sharing your work, sharing... Here's what I've been doing. Would love to get your thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's... And if you know that what you're doing, where you've gotten to is good, sharing that is not, it's not a bad thing either. It's an invitation for collaborations, an invitation for feedback.
Exactly.
And sometimes it would be good to just share stuff that isn't all the way done, just to like make it easier on yourself. Like, okay, actually, if I do get the feedback and I know it's not all the way finished, I can implement it before the finished product,
Yeah. And also maybe they're like, this is perfect. You don't have to do any more work. Done. So yeah, you're sharing your impact, sharing your value is not the same as being arrogant, because there is value there to be shared. When you think about bragging, you'll probably in your mind have someone that you can immediately draw on it. And you probably have this person in your mind who just is like, hey everyone, listen, I don't know if you guys wanted to see this, but I've got this really cool thing that I've been working on. It's completely irrelevant. No one cares. No one asked me to do it, but I think it's really cool. So I'm going to share it. I'm going to throw in some buzzwords and you're going to love it. Clap for me. And it's just like, okay.
And he gets claps.
People clap.
He gets applause. Yeah. Because He has already, he's already told them what he wants from them. And people deep down, people have this or crowds of people or groups of people almost have this kind of irrational need to like, once there's someone in front of you talking and they say, like, you know how it is in like, you go to a conference or you go to a talk and someone says, everyone put your hands up. People just instinctively do it because there's somebody in front telling them to do it.
Yeah. And then you have a weirdo like me who starts looking left and right like, is this a cult?
But yeah, I've seen that so many times.
I've seen it happen. I'm not trying to give anything away. I've seen it happen. And I was just like dumbfounded because the thing that was said was of absolutely no value whatsoever. It was irrelevant, unimportant, and just crap, in my opinion. And the clapping at the end was it was incredible. It was like an earthquake. And I turned to my left and my right, as I do when I'm dumbfounded. And I saw someone clapping, standing up and clapping.
Oh, jeez.
And slow clapping like this. Not in an ironic slow clap that I would do. But this was clapping, shaking his head and going, what a guy.
What a guy.
What a guy. And I've never heard anyone actually say in real life, what a guy. And at this point I knew, oh God, you are not supposed to be here. Like, it was weird. It was weird as hell. And we see this stuff, right? I'm sure, I mean, I'm not even joking. I wish I could say I'm joking or exaggerating. Literally, that is what happened. But we see these kind of things and we think, ugh, gross. Like, I don't want to be part of this. But the reality is we don't have to be part of that. We don't have to do that to share our stories. We have to be, like, again, that wonderful word that you picked up on at the beginning there, Yemi, authentic to us. We don't want to copy these weirdos, right? We want to actually talk about ourselves and the work that we do in a way that feels positive, that feels valuable, and that won't, have us waking up in the middle of the night thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Nobody wants that. I still think about things that I did in primary school. Another thing that's really important, and I think I said this at the beginning, is that if you don't tell your story, if you stay silent, you're giving opportunity for someone else, anyone else, to define what your narrative is. And I feel like most of us know what that's like, right? When you perceive a version of you coming out of other people's mouths, you're like, that's not me. That's not how I do things. That's not who I am. Da, da, da. Like, if you don't speak up for yourself, you're giving other people the opportunity to speak for you, and what they say may not always resonate with who you are or who you're trying to be. And of course, the risk is always that you are overlooked. Now, another interesting thing, there's a really cool book called The Confidence Code by Cassie Kay and Claire Shipman, and they talk about how the more you self-promote, the more you advocate for yourself, the more you brag, the more confident you feel, the more successful you are. So actually you want to get into a virtuous cycle of making yourself feel good by talking about the good things that you do. Why visibility matters. There's a few. Dr. Dulcie's back. Let me just put my lab coat back on again. Okay, goggles on. Dr. Dulcie Dark Mode is back in action. We've got some scientific things here, okay?
Okay, let's go.
Let me drop some names. Hold on, let me get practice the names. One thing about visibility is that the more familiar people are with you, the more they trust you. That's just a thing, right? In fact, it's not just a thing. It's called the mere exposure effect by Robert Zajonc. And what the mere exposure effect says is that when people are repeatedly exposed to a stimulus, it leads to familiarity and a more positive attitude towards it, no matter what it is, which is so wild. So it's rooted in the idea that the brain associates familiarity with safety and positive outcomes. So the more exposure you have to a brand or a celebrity or an activity, even if there's a better option, the more likely you are to pick that thing you're more familiar with. So, I mean, come on, that's a really strong argument for getting yourself out there, right? Even if you're a bit shit, they're going to pick you. And it's not you, of course, dear listener. The mere fact you're listening to this tells me you're absolutely bloody exquisite.
You are.
Now, another one, around people judging you and you're thinking, oh my God, what are they thinking about me? sweetheart,
They're not
no one
thinking
cares
about you.
thinking about you. Right, darling, they ain't thinking about you. So this one's called The Spotlight Effect. It's by Thomas Gilovich. And the spotlight effect is what causes us to have this exaggerated view of our own significance to the people around us, where we make decisions based on the fact that we think people are looking at us, right? It could be positive, it can be negative. You might feel like everyone's like, look, you've just given a great presentation. Everyone's like, oh my God, there she goes. Oh my God, it's Dulcie. She was so amazing on that stage. But you also might think that you just gave a really bad one. And everyone's like, oh my God, that's Dulcie. Oh my God, she's such an idiot. That's both of those things are the spotlight effect, taking effect, where you think people don't care. And listen, I can prove it to you. When did you last give a damn about what someone said or did? Think about the last presentation you went to that someone else did.
I was just happy it was a short
Over.
presentation. Yeah.
Right?
I could do the things I needed to.
Right. No one is actually... You don't think that much about it. Even if you think about a really great presentation you've been to, you're probably like, wow, that's awesome. And maybe you look the person up, or you look up more about them, or you start to implement what you've heard from them. But after a while, it drifts out of your mind, right? The impact is lasting, but the specific thing itself starts to drift away from you.
Yeah.
Similarly, think about a time when you saw someone just make a total bloody fool of themselves. Maybe in the moment it was funny. Maybe you hit WhatsApp or Slack or Teams afterwards like, babe, did you see that? But like after that little bit of like, hee hee ha ha, it's gone. Like nobody has the time to. We have way too much going on in our own lives to
Bill.
Right. So just even if you are feeling that way, even if you are like, oh my God, just remember that nobody cares. It's so freeing to just remember that. Another reason why visibility matters is just the power of storytelling. So facts are great, but stories are what really sell. So facts tell, stories sell. Think about it like that. And if you don't tell your stories, you might not like how other people tell your story. So just think about like, this is who I am. I'm owning myself, my aura, my work. It's mine. It's my brilliance to own. So I want everyone listening, just if we're going to give you a little quick challenge and, notes app, pen and paper, whatever, think about one area where you would like more recognition. This doesn't have to, I know we've been talking about work. It doesn't have to be about work. It might be in any part of your life, but think about one area where you would like to have more recognition and think about what's stopping you from, excuse me, sorry, dry throat. I wasn't getting emotional. Think about what is stopping you from sharing. What's that block? Is it some of the stuff we've talked about? Is it a fear of judgment? Is it perfectionism? Is it imposter syndrome? Is it the cultural norms that you were raised with or bad past experiences? There's no judgment here, right? But what we want to do is confront ourselves. Like, what is holding me back from doing that? And hopefully what we talk about next will help you overcome some of that.
Just one thing on visibility.
Yeah.
And value. Visibility does not equal value.
No.
So just a little caveat there. Your value is inherent to you or the work you've done. Like Dulcie said, you're brilliant. So you're brilliant whether the spotlight is on you or not, right? So that's not about that. It's about your narrative, your story, your journey, your impact. How do you want that communicated to the world? You're wonderful already. It's just, how do you now want people to see that?
Exactly that.
My little 2 cents.
Exactly that. It's about, letting people see it. Letting people, don't be so greedy.
On your own terms. On your own terms.
Greedy. Share some of that brilliance, girl. Let's see it.
The light shine.
I want to see it. And hey, listen, if you know what, I need to put something up on the socials, but I want to hear you brag. Brag to me. Tell me something.
Yeah.
Send me an email. Get on social media. Send me a DM. Tell me, talk your shit, okay?
I made some fantastic noodles last night with prawns and carrots and mixed herbs, and it was brilliant. Use my special garlic oil I got from Lidl. Lidl does great stuff if you know where to look.
Bragging about yourself. I'm bragging about Lidl today. Okay. Tell me more about how you were doing things in the kitchen, girl.
And I do not like to cook. FYI, I don't even like to cook. My husband is the one who likes to cook, but everyone assumes he cooks. He's the cook of the family because he's always putting his stuff on social media, right? Like he's always updating his WhatsApp status with what he cooks. So everyone assumes he's the main chef of the family, but it's actually me. And I started taking pictures of my food now. I just be like, you know what? Even if I don't share it out to social media, I'm going to share it in this forum here. I'm going to say it out and say, look, I am a brilliant cook.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
I'm good at it.
Hear that? Everybody listen. Yemisi is a brilliant.
Don't come to my house and ask for just
because honestly, how did you get her address?
Don't come to my house and say, okay, cooker, come and cook for me. No.
Right.
I'm just letting you know as an example that I did something that I felt was really good.
Yeah.
I just let it pass, and now Dulcie has said something. And you know what? Actually, I did that.
Talk
it was
your
good.
Shit. Talk your shit. I like that. I love that.
Thank you. Sorry, I got you off your train of
no.
talking about Lidl and the garlic oil.
Absolutely fine. So before talking about a framework or a snapshot into my framework. So Yemi talked earlier on about a course called Own Your Brilliance, which is the WorkWell course about how to self-promote. So feels like a bit of a plug. It is a bit of a plug. But I will talk a little bit about the framework in that course. And of course, if you can't stop saying it. Of course, if you would like to take that course, there'll be more details at the end and maybe a little discount for podcast listeners.
I love a good discount.
Yeah. So, but before I touch on that, I want to actually dive a little bit further into the fears that we have and how to overcome those fears. And I think we'll have a bit of fun because we'll do like what a bad brag sounds like and what a good brag sounds like. Okay. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Oh, I love a bit of. Is it going to be role play?
It's acting, honey. If there's one thing in this world I love to do, it's act.
Okay, this is your theatrical debut.
Oh, all those years of training with Lambda. Wasn't for nothing. Okay, so first fear is that fear of sounding boastful. Like, oh, I'm going to sound really arrogant. It's gross. We've seen it. We don't want to make people feel that uncomfortable. When you feel a bit uncomfortable and like icky when people do that, and you don't want to be that person that does it. But actually, where that really comes from, that perception of arrogance, is when the bragging is not purposeful or authentic, when that shit is just so shallow. Then it is just boastful nonsense. It's LinkedIn. Like, there's nothing there. Do I hate LinkedIn? I'm not saying that.
LinkedIn has been just eating stray bullets.
LinkedIn has been getting flogged. And there's actually loads of great stuff on LinkedIn. I'm just being so shade, including the WorkWell page on LinkedIn.
We're gonna be blacklisted.
But if you want to get out of the sea of crap and look at something really good, go to linkedin.com/this is WorkWell.
An oasis of pristine.
Just like really meaningful content. But like, I know I'm flogging LinkedIn, but you know what I mean? It's just all that silly, shallow nonsense. But there's a great book about bragging by Meredith Feynman called Brag Better. Really recommend that book. It's brilliant. And she talks a lot about that. Listen, be authentic. Don't worry about sounding boastful if you're not boastful. If you actually have something to say, it's not going to make people feel uncomfortable. So like, here's a bad brag. Okay. Well, actually, I should ask Yemi, do you want to do some of the role playing?
You're the Lambda person. I'd like to see what Lambda's done.
Okay.
No pressure or nothing, but I'm really curious to see the Lambda.
Yeah. I'm gonna I have a persona for my bad bragging and I have one for my good bragging.
Let's hear and see. This is spotlights on. Let's go.
On me.
And action.
So bad brag would sound a bit like this. I'm the top performer in the company. Yeah, right? Gross. It's bad because it just sounds like self-praise. There's no evidence. There's no context.
There never is there?
It never is, right? But here's a good brag. I'm proud to have led a project that boosted our sales by 30% this quarter. It's been exciting to see how the team's work made such a big impact. Why that one's good is that it frames the accomplishment in terms of results and it acknowledges the team. See? See? I'm hoping this is starting to get the cogs turning in people's minds about, okay. Right, I see how I can go from bad to good. All right, fear number 2 is oversharing and the fear of becoming or coming across as maybe a bit too emotional or sharing too many details, which might dilute the message. And I think there is a nervousness, especially for women and especially for people of colour, around vulnerability. So there is so much that can be said for vulnerability and how it enables us to connect meaningfully with other people, but you also need to balance that with confidence. Daring Greatly by Brene Brown is a really good book to unpack vulnerability and its place in professional lives. Like if you want to dive into that, that's a great book for it. So this one is one that you have to toe the line really carefully with vulnerability, but it is an important thing. So let's do a bad brag. Okay, this might be a slightly different persona. Okay, got it. Right. This project completely drained me. I was working late every night and I spent a lot of time fixing people's mistakes. It's not great.
Shady.
It's a bit shady. It focuses on the challenges rather than the results or the lessons learned, and it's shifting blame a bit, right? It doesn't feel great. Whereas a good brag here might be, this project was challenging, but it taught me how to prioritize effectively under pressure. As a result, we delivered on time and exceeded client expectations. Okay, yeah. We know that this was hard. We still get that this wasn't the easiest thing to do, but the focus now has shifted onto growth and results. Right? Okay. Should we go on to the next fear?
Let's do it.
Another fear is a fear of being judged. And even though we have told you guys, nobody cares, but, we're still going to worry about this stuff, right? You might worry that it makes you look overly confident or inauthentic and people are going to judge you negatively. We've talked about the spotlight effect. So, something that might make you a bad brag here that you could see, I'll get judged for this, would be, I was the only one who could figure out how to fix the issue. It's just how I am. And the thing is, I wish I was exaggerating, but I have heard this in real life. I wish I hadn't, but I have. And I just remember switching my neck the fuck? What? Ew. But if you were having a similar thing, but you wanted to say it the right way, you might want to say, I'm really proud of how I approached this challenge. The solution that I pulled together helped to resolve the issue quickly and it kept us on track. Yeah, you didn't undermine anyone. You did something. You're proud of yourself and no one's going to judge you for that. But if you're like, it's just how I am, I just fix things, people are going to be like, oh, gross. Fear of taking up space. So this one is really pertinent for women and people from marginalized groups where they feel uncomfortable claiming all the credit, right? And seeming like it me. And this is something that women and minorities are socialized to do. We've talked about it earlier on in the episode, right? About being humble. But the reality is, all it does is hinder your career progression. Now, this book I'm going to recommend, some elements of it I don't love, but it is still a solid bit of reading, I think, called Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. It's a bit old at this point, but there are some, I think she maybe ignores some systemic and structural things a bit too much, but there are some really useful points in there. And she does say some great stuff about how women are socialized to avoid advocating for themselves. And that has to stop. We have to find a way to do it that feels right for us, but we have to do it. So in this space, a bad brag might sound like, I don't want to take all the credit, but I played a role in the project's success. Okay.
Yeah, no. What role did you play?
What did you play? Did you really do anything? You sound like you're questioning yourself. A good one might be, I'm proud of the leadership I provided during this project. Aligning the team's efforts helped us deliver a 20% improvement in efficiency. Okay. She did that. Okay. Fine. You've got your role. It's a team effort, but we know what you did. Well done. And the last fear will be imposter syndrome. Again, we are going to dive into this wicked syndrome in another episode, but it's that whole feeling like no matter your achievements, they're somehow not earned or it's not legitimate and you undermine yourself. You have this lack of confidence, which is just so unfair. And of course, we know that it does affect marginalized groups far more than others. When what was it we were talking about that we were like, bloody hell, burnout, when we're like, oh, they've been working on this since the 70s. This is not new. Same thing with imposter syndrome. I think the book by Clance and Imes was 78.
Oh.
Yeah, this thing it's not new at all. But as we've seen more and more women in the workforce, more and more diversity in the workplace, we've seen more and more imposter syndrome. So a bad brag in this space might be, I was lucky to get this opportunity. I still have so much to learn. Were you lucky or were you actually working 5 times harder than the next person? And a good thing might be to say, this opportunity has been an incredible learning experience. My focus on innovation helped deliver results that exceeded expectations. Great. I'm growing. This is an experience. I'm learning, but I'm good. I'm supposed to be here. Right? Focus, no matter what, focus on your impact rather than your ego. Try and tie your achievements to measurable outcomes. Celebrate progress, not perfection.
Yep.
This week I did this and this helped the team do that. Boom. Encourage collaboration. Highlight other people. Create a culture of mutual encouragement. You know what you were saying about you're a great cheerleader. You love to big other people up. Another thing you're doing when you do that is setting a standard.
Yeah.
So that other people around you also do that.
Yeah.
You're essentially, as we improve, we're lifting each other as we climb. If you want to dive into that topic, I'm full of book recommendations today. If you want to read more about the whole concept of empowering others as you grow, I heavily recommend a book by a woman called Viv Grosskop, and it's called Lift as You Climb.
I like that phrase a lot.
So, as I said earlier on, WorkWell does have a course about how to promote yourself. It's called Own Your Brilliance. And within that course, you get a really deep dive into what you need to say, how you need to say it, who you're going to say it to. And before all of that, you go into this thing about why. What are your core values? Why are you doing any of this, right? And you end the course with a whole calendar of what you're going to say, when, how, all the rest of it. It's very, very exciting. Listen to the end. There'll be an advert about that at the end. But if I were to distill it all into something very, very simple so that everyone listening can start working at it, there are 3 Ps: pride, purpose, and presentation. So pride, own your achievements unapologetically. They're yours. You've done it. I want you to write down everything you've done, right? Take some time and compile this over time, because you'll remember, like, oh yeah, no, I did do that. Add it to the list. But right now, as you are listening to this, I want you to pause, go open your notes app, get a piece of paper, and just write down one thing you have done recently, one recent accomplishment, and reflect on the impact you had. We are so quick to get things done and on to the next. We don't appreciate ourselves enough for what we are doing every day in, day out. And this isn't just work. We're not just workers, right? WorkWell is about where work meets life. What are you also doing beyond that? Yemi, for you, for example, you're on the school's board of governors. Bloody hell. That's some real stuff. The impact that you've had there. Write down one recent thing you've done there.
Chair of governors, actually.
Listen, talk your shit, girl. No, that's right. You see okay, listeners, you see what just happened there? What did I tell you before? I said, if you don't own your story, someone else will. I had the wrong thing. And Yemi's like, She's bored. I'm bored of you getting the details wrong. Yeah. Chair. You see the importance of owning your brilliance. Fantastic. So write something down that you've done recently. and reflect on the impact that you've had. And then over time, I want you to keep adding to it. We don't just want to be doing this when it's time to update our CVs and be like, oh, what have I done for the last 5 years? Keep a live list of all the things that you're achieving, because you are achieving a lot, not just at work, but in your whole life. Okay? Write it down. Make a record.
Yeah, a did that diary.
A what now?
A did that diary. I did that.
I did that. That is so cute. You see, people, do your I did that diary. Okay?
TM.
TM. Copyright Yummy. The next P is purpose. So that's when now we're thinking about, okay, this is what I want to say. Who am I trying to get the message out to? So is it something, I think an obvious one is, I want to, move forward in my career, I want a promotion. So I'm thinking about my line manager, but also other influencers, both who are senior to you and your peers. Who am I trying to get what message out to? So think about, what am I trying to achieve, and who then will help me achieve that thing, and what do they need to hear from me to move me towards that goal? It might be that, right, I actually need to raise my profile beyond my company. Right, I'm going to hop onto the hellhole that is LinkedIn. I'm going to change my mindset and actually think about this as a great space for me to share my accomplishments with my wider industry. I'm going to join some groups, some special interest groups that align with the things that I'm working on, and I'm going to start adding value to those areas and contributing to broader conversations about a topic that I care about. And in doing so, I'm going to raise my profile in this space. So think about what it is you're trying to achieve, who's going to help you achieve it, and what you need to say and do in order to move towards those goals. And then the last P was presentation. So this is thinking about, what's my voice? And in the course, there's a module which is about what's your authentic voice. This is a really important thing. This is a thing that takes the ick, takes the cringe out of it. When you start sounding like yourself, not that douche, right? You want to sound like you. So what is your style? Figure out what your style is. Once you know what your voice is, you know how to present yourself to the world. You depending on who you are and how you like to say things, you might use humor. Maybe actually you actually really want to be quite straight with it. So you want to be very factual and almost clinical in the way you do, and that suits the environment that you're talking in. There are lots of different things. When you find your style, and there's an exercise called your style compass in the course, which helps you just figure out, like, what is a thing that will make what I say uniquely me, right?
And don't use this as an excuse for perfectionism, right? Don't use this presentation stage as trying to craft the perfect thing that sounds like you. Sometimes you find your voice by speaking. The more you speak, the more you start to identify, okay, I said this, it made me feel a bit icky. What parts of what I said made me feel icky? Okay, next time I'm going to say that, or say it like that. And over time, you're not going to get it right the first time. Make your peace with that. You may not, but make your peace with the fact that you may not get it right the first time, and be open to the idea that this is a process that you will have to practice in order to progress in.
Fantastic point. Perfectly made. Oh, perfect. If we're going to add another P, it would be practice. Okay? 4 P's. Pride. Purpose,
I got you, girl.
Presentation and practice. Get going. Do it. In the next week, do it. Get something out. Put something up on your intranet or Slack channel or a newsletter. Volunteer to stand up and give a team update. Put something on LinkedIn. Reach out to someone you met at a conference and say, hey, I really like this. I want to talk to you. I'd love to hear more. Do just get into it. Just share just one thing over the next week. In any forum you want, share just one thing that you've done in a way that you feel adds value and feels authentic to you. And it doesn't matter if it feels like, if you're still feeling a bit like, uncomfortable, like Yemi said, this is a process. Practice it. And another thing, if you are still a bit nervous, you're not the only one who feels like that. You're not the only person you know who feels like that. Find someone else, send them this episode and do it together.
Yeah, there you go.
This is
Strength
the
in
thing.
numbers.
Like when I've done this course before in person, I've advised everyone in the room to back each other. And they've always loved this idea of, okay, well, I'm going to do my thing. If I put this here, will you like comment on it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, do whatever you need to do to build your confidence. Find your partner. 5th P, partner. Okay? Pride, purpose, presentation, practice, and partner.
Partner.
Okay? So you find someone to partner with who is in the same boat that you are and support each other in advocating for each other. Remember that other people, again, dependent on who they are, the environment you're in, might just never, even if they try their best to speak for themselves, the environment might be one that just doesn't want to hear their voice. If they hear your voice more than they hear the other person's, use your voice for that person.
Yes.
Not just about promoting yourself, advocate for others, especially if they aren't in a position to advocate for themselves. It's so, so important to do, right?
I will say one thing that helped me. When you first approached me to do this podcast with you, Dulcie, I was terrified about my voice being heard on the airwaves. And what really helped me was I actually read this book by Candice Brathwaite called Manifesto. I think in there somewhere, I want to say it was her book. Definitely, I got that insight while I was reading her book, in any case, where the message matters more than the messenger. And that really got to me because it was like, sometimes get over yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you have to say matters way more than you.
Yeah.
And there's someone that needs to hear what you have to say.
Oh, yeah.
And that really helped me to get over myself.
Yeah.
And it was actually what I have to say matters more than, my feelings of insecurity. And if I can, give my message in a way that matters, then that's all that matters.
There are times when you just need to face that fact, like, I don't matter, but the message really does. So just get to it, So I think that's about it for us, unless there's anything else.
I think that's it. I got a lot off my chest this episode, I think.
Okay, so, wow, that was a great conversation about self-promotion and bragging. And I'm hoping that everyone's kind of got to the core of it, that it's not about ego.
No.
It's about ensuring that the work you've done, the brilliant work that you've done, is seen and valued. Because when you start speaking up for yourself, when you advocate for yourself, you start opening doors for your own growth, but you're also inspiring others to do the same.
Yes. This week, we challenge you to share your one win. Start small, but take that first step and let us know how it feels.
Yeah, and please let us know. If you're listening on Spotify, jump in those comments and tell us. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, you can find us on other social media channels and just talk to us. We'd love to hear more about it. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know by subscribing so that you never miss another episode. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating or review. It means the world to us and it helps more people discover the show.
Yes, indeed. And you can also connect with us on social media. We are at This Is WorkWell on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We'd love to hear how you're putting your bragging rights to use.
Oh, yeah. So we touched on imposter syndrome earlier on. And like I said, next time we're gonna go deeper into imposter syndrome. Is imposter syndrome as real as we think it is? Asking the questions. So is it as real as we think it is, or is it maybe masking something else, something bigger? We're going to explore the roots of imposter syndrome, the impact it has, and how to rewrite the narrative. So until then, take care and keep working well.
Bye.
Bye. Does the thought of promoting yourself make you cringe? Maybe you're worried about sounding arrogant, or you just don't know where to start. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone, but I've got you covered. Here's the thing. If you don't advocate for yourself, who will? Bragging or self-promotion doesn't have to feel fake, awkward, or boastful. Because too often your incredible work goes unnoticed simply because you don't know how to talk about it. That's why I created Own Your Brilliance, an authentic guide to self-promotion. This self-paced course is packed with research-based strategies and practical tools to help you share your achievements confidently and authentically. You'll learn how to overcome fears like perfectionism, imposter syndrome, and judgment. You'll build your very own visibility vault, which will be full of your wins and killer stories. And you'll learn how to promote yourself internally or on platforms like LinkedIn without feeling all icky. As a thank you for tuning into the podcast, I'm offering listeners an exclusive 20% off. Use the code OWNIT20, OWNIT20 at checkout. But don't wait, this offer is only valid until Valentine's Day, February the 14th. Why Valentine's Day? Because it's time to show yourself some love and start owning your brilliance. Click the link in the show notes or visit www.thisisworkwell.com/own-your-brilliance to sign up today. Own your brilliance. Let's make bragging your superpower.